Before I move on from Acelepryn, I think it's worth me taking a little bit of time to tell you a story. If we go back to when, just over 5 years ago, I was sat in this very room. It was probably one of those days that Dan approached me and said, "Do you fancy coming to work with us?" And I thought, that sounds interesting. And he said, "We've got an insecticide we're just about to register." And I thought, brilliant, I'm going to launch an insecticide in my year one. Here I am 5 years later, finally launching it. And having been a turf manager and gone through that registration journey, I just want to take this chance, because I still feel like I'm one of you in the room. I quite haven't transitioned yet. I want to say thank you to Phil and Phil's team and people like Phil that develop these products and get them and do all the work at Syngenta before they even get in our hands. And I'm not actually thanking Dave, but I'm thanking people like Dave, because Dave was 7 when it went into registration. And business managers like Dan for keep pushing and building those business cases and saying, yes, we need them. People like Simon Ellsworth in the back of the room who support these products and make this business work. Rod, who does and builds that marketing support to make this happen. These things don't happen without that team absolutely desperate to make this happen for industry. There's been so many times on this project where I know we've sat down and go, is this project worth it? And it is, it's absolutely worth it. So if you don't mind, not for me, but for the rest of the Syngenta team, do you mind just giving them a bit of a round of applause, because it is a huge effort to get this to market. Thank you. Right, so that's Acelepryn done. We've covered Acelepryn this morning. What have I got left? I've got kind of 20 minutes. We might do a bit of questions on what else we do. We've got some challenges with Acelepryn. It's a brilliant product. We've worked really hard to get the label. We understand where it fits in the market. We've been really fortunate. We've had 4 years of emergency authorisations. So whilst this is a launch, and we're trying to say, look, Acelepryn's new and exciting, you've all been using it for 4 years. You know exactly what it does. We've got real experience of it in the field. And we know it's not perfect. It's really, really good. It's the best we can bring to the market. It's the best you're likely ever to see again. But you keep asking me for more control. We've got the label now. We can't hide from the elephant in the room. You've only got 10% of the area that you can use this on according to that label. And we fought tooth and nail to get that. So we need supporting products. One, to raise the efficacy of this, make it better when we need better levels of control, and 2, fill in the gaps where we can't use this. And that's where we've started to look at some different technology to support. Technology that has a stronger kind of environmental foundation that's going to mean we can use it on and on and on. We're going to need things to support Acelepryn from a resistance point of view, as Dave says. So we've got to look at alternative technologies. So we're really pleased here today, not only to be launching Acelepryn, but also our brand of nematodes, NemaTrident, and to support technology in NemaSpreader. So what is NemaTrident? Well, it's a range of naturally occurring, beneficial, I wish Henry was here, he's much better at saying these big words than I am. Nematodes, microscopic tiny little worms, each carefully selected to target insect pests. Now, what's NemaSpreader? NemaSpreader is some technology that will support it. It's a water retention agent that is specifically designed to minimise any damage done to those nematodes to support it to get better levels of control. Now, I'm looking around the room and I can see a lot of faces, a lot of course managers, a lot of turf managers, a lot of lawn care franchises saying, oh, come on, Glenn, nematodes. They don't work. We've been using them for years. They're unreliable. They're difficult to apply, and they're expensive. And you know what? I've got loads and loads of data to support all of that. You're absolutely right. When we don't get things right, they don't work very well. If we get the application wrong, they don't work very well. They are expensive because anything that doesn't work is expensive. But if we can get good levels of control out of them, then they're great value for money. So what are they? What are we talking about today? Well, we're talking about billions of microscopic, teeny tiny little worms. This is a spray filter. So you're all pretty familiar with what a spray filter looks like. Hopefully you've taken them out of your sprayer and cleaned them occasionally. although many customers I go see to struggle to find them, obviously, when you have a little look. So from a scale point of view, that is the size. So whilst they're tiny, you can just about pick them out. Certainly with a cheap microscope, you can see what you're looking at. But it also starts to present some of the challenges we have when we start applying these things. They like to crawl up Leatherjacket's arses. Don't tut at me, Liz. I used to do ornamental controls presentation for you. That's why I got moved on. They like to crawl up Leatherjacket rear ends, crawl inside, inject them with bacteria, release bacteria in the insides of Leatherjackets and chafers. That bacteria starts to rot them from the inside out, creating a perfect environment for tiny little nematodes to have happy families, babies, create more of them, and then burst out, killing the target insect. It's a horrible life cycle, but one that turf managers love when it goes right. Now, we've got 3 species in our range that we're launching. And one of the key things that Syngenta can offer in this area is investment in research, investment in education, and investment in support to help you choose the right one. Now, we've got a big market. We're talking about the UK today, but my area covers Europe, Africa, Middle East. So we've got to think about the right technologies for different climates, for different pests. They've all got quite big names, but actually the more time I've spent looking at them, these are the only bits that really matter. Some of them work when the soil temperatures reach 8 degrees. Some of them work when your soil temperatures reach 14 degrees. And some of them work when your soil temperatures reach 12 degrees. Now, if we can offer you the right advice, the right levels of support, and make sure that you're not applying at something that doesn't work until it gets 14 degrees at the wrong time of the year. So we've got Steiner NemaFeltii, Steiner NemaCarpocapsae, and the Bactophoria. 3 species. Now, we're trying to really simplify that. Now, for the UK, particularly with Leatherjackets, we don't get warm enough to use anything other than this one. So one of the things we're doing is making sure you get the right species at the right time, at the right rates. Because the more we send in, the more effective these things are. And we know that because we've done loads and loads of lab work. But we know the more we send in, the better they are, assuming we've got some soil moisture, because these are living creatures. If they're trying to survive in droughty conditions, they will die quickly. Assuming the temperature is right. If it's too cold, they'll just lie there and won't do anything. If it's too warm, they'll start to struggle. This is where species selection becomes so important, and understanding your climatic data for where you are. And timing. Sean's spoken a lot about timing for Acelepryn. That's really important to get the timing right for that. It's even more important when we start looking at live species and nematodes to send them in. So we can offer lots of support. We've done lots of research, and we continue to build, with your support, our evidence to get the best out of it. And of course, education. As if there's something that Syngenta does well, it's days like this. So to be able to come along today, 5 years after starting at Syngenta and finally launching an insecticide, plus a biological insecticide, is really, really pleasing. And we're going to do everything we can to support. And that's what we're here today, to educate you on how to get the best use out of these things and combine these strategies to help you in your turf environment. Okay, so I referred to a lab study earlier. In this lab study, we put out 2.5 billion a hectare and 5 billion a hectare to understand what was going on. Lab studies are easy because we can control temperature, we can control soil moisture, so we get a pretty good picture of what is possible, not necessarily what is realistic. A thing to remember, because you're going to hear a few rates today, 2.5 billion a hectare is a very big, scary number. It's generally not enough zeros on your calculator to make this work. So you have to go back to your computer and use a calculator with more zeros. But when you break it down, it's actually quite simple. If you apply at 2.5 billion a hectare, you're applying 25 live nematodes per centimetre. Every centimetre, 25 of those tiny little microscopic worms that you're sending in to try and overpower the target insect you're sending in. Now, you've got to make sure as many of those are as live as possible, because the more you send in, the better levels of control you get. So we know if we send 25 per centimetre in, we get about 60% control in lab conditions. We know if we send 50 per centimetre in, we know we get 100% in lab conditions on mature larvae. So this is a game now. How many of these things can we get in the right place alive? That is the aim of this afternoon's session, to teach you, to give you as much guidance to make sure you minimise how many nematodes you kill on that journey. So we've mentioned those rates. We've got two rates we're talking about here. If we're going to use NemaTrident on its own, we're talking about a rate of 5 billion per hectare, and we'll have a little look at that on the rotation sessions. That is 50 per centimetre. If we're looking at an integrated rate, and we've touched on this already, where we start building these things in on top of each other to get higher levels of control, more consistent control, more robust control, then we're looking at a rate of about 25 per centimetre. Some of the things we're looking at this afternoon is why do they fail? Why do we reduce? Why do we only deliver? There'll be situations where, honestly, I think in the past when I've looked at nematode applications, I'd be surprised if there's more than one or two of these things delivered alive to the surface. So why does that go wrong? Poor condition on arrival. Syngenta and ICL will work incredibly hard to get these things delivered in the best condition possible, so they're in the right state when they arrive on your doorstep. They've been kept at the right temperature, they've been stored correctly, they've been delivered correctly. We'll make sure we're informing people so you'll know you're ready to receive them, because the moment they leave our hands, the chances of them starting to fail starts. Wrong species selection, there are some collections of nematodes that are being sold where you've got 33% of this species, 33% of that species, and 33% of that species. We've done some work on it, and you know what? Only one of those is ever going to work in any one situation. So immediately you're going with 1/3 of the rate and you're just throwing 66% of them away. So we've got to work really hard to choose the right species and give people good advice on that. Once it arrives on your doorstep and the delivery man has walked away, it's then your responsibility. Does that end up in the pro shop, sat on the pro shop desk during the autumn when the heater's on a Friday afternoon and you pick it up on a Monday? Or can we improve that communication? Can we do a better job of storing it? Can we help you get bespoke refrigerators that are storing at the right temperature? What can we do to move that forward? Now, assuming we stored it correctly, you can then mix it up wrong. There are still opportunities to get this wrong and kill nematodes even at that stage. We can improve application technique. We could support you with application timings. We've got to get better at doing that as well. And of course, soil temperatures. We've got to understand those because these are living creatures and need optimum soil temperatures for them to work at their most effective when we deliver them. And of course, they need moisture. Basically, when you're dealing with living entities, things can go wrong pretty damn quick. And if there's one thing you take away about nematodes and NemaTrident today, it's if we're going to use these things, we need to commit and we need to take them seriously. Because if we frame it that way and we decide we're going to try and do this really well, then we can get much better results out of them than we ever have historically. And I've proved it in my data. I've got really good results. But if we don't take it seriously, just expect it to arrive, we don't put it in the fridge, we don't look after it, we don't think about our mixing techniques, there's a pretty good chance you're just wasting your money. And that is people's previous experience of this. We've got to up our game on that. So how are we going to support, how are we going to reduce that failure? We're going to carefully select products, we're going to educate you. That starts today. This isn't the end of our education, this is just the beginning of it. It's great to have you here at the beginning of that journey. We're going to invest heavily in digital support so we can give you really good bespoke timing and advice on when to do this and get the best out of it, and regular advice. We're here, whether that be digital advice, whether that be distribution that we'll make sure we talk to and train and educate, we're here to support. So these are the solutions that you have currently. We've got an untreated here, 116 leather jackets per square metre in the untreated. By using NemaTrident at 5 billion per hectare, so this is the solo rate, we managed to reduce that pressure from 116 down to about 35. Now, if you just looked at that without an untreated control, you'd probably deem that a failure. But it's not. If we start looking at what we're achieving with these, when we apply them properly, we get brilliant population control, brilliant population reduction, long-term programs to lower population levels. This isn't silver bullet, shut the population down when you need to. These are long-term commitments of applying things properly to lower population levels. And then you've got Acelepryn. In this situation, in this trial, we reduced that down to about 10. So what do we get? 70% control, and I think that's realistic. From all the work I've done, if you want to use nematodes by themselves, if you want to use NemaTrident, you do it right, you store it right, you apply them right, get your timings right. I think 70% control is realistic. Now, if you've got high populations, that is not ultimate problem solution. It is a long-term program to reduce the pressure. Acelepryn, that's give us 90% control consistently. We're really happy with that. We've seen that in all our R&D data. We've seen that in the field. We're there. So what do we need to do to support it? What else can we offer? Well, NemaSpreader is part of the toolkit to get the best out of these. Now, NemaSpreader is a biocompatible blend of spreading and water retention agents. What do we mean by biocompatible? It means we've tested loads and loads of surfactants. We know moisture is critical in the soil. We've tested loads of surfactants to understand how they interact with nematodes in that tank, because nematodes are pretty sensitive. We don't want to be putting the wrong product in there and reducing their lifespan. And we're going to talk a little bit about that later on some of the rotation sessions, but the longer they're in the tank with surfactants, the sooner they're going to fail. I've done loads of work to find the best biocompatible surfactant that is going to support them and minimize that nematode loss. That's designed to enhance and distribute them more evenly in the soil, to help them move through those films, increase their survival rate, and move things forward. And in our field trials, we see about 28% more effective when we use NemaSpreader than we do when it's not in there. It's a really worthwhile tool. If you take another piece of advice away, don't go chucking any old wetting agent in the tank, because some of them have a really negative impact on nematodes. We've gone through this whole process and tried to find the safest one that will support them. So how are we doing for time? Great. So what are we going to do this afternoon to try and educate, train, give you more information for you to take out into the market, talk to other greenkeepers, talk to your peers, talk to other lawn care franchises, and help them get the best out of it as well. We're going to break down into some groups. We're going to spend some time with some experts. You'll notice this morning it's been a bit of a whistle-stop tour. I know some of it's been a little bit heavy, but it's brilliant stuff. This afternoon is about talking to people, engaging with people. You're going to get to rotate amongst a number of sessions with a load of experts, and I want you to ask them questions. I want you to pick people out. I want you to find anyone in a Syngenta top. Ask them the questions. We want to learn why things fail, and what is it that we've done historically that maybe we could change our practices a bit, take a little bit more seriously, and get some more out of this. Loads more questions we can talk about. So what have we got on these rotation sessions? We're really lucky to have Rod, who is our eArmy marketing lead, and Sarah, who is one of our nematode experts, to look at those under a microscope. We're going to spend some time looking at dormancy, understanding how they actually move, what they need to wake up, what are the right species for which target insect, what temperature should we be applying them at, what's the life cycles we're dealing with. We're going to have a look at all of that up close and personal in groups, in small groups. You're going to break down into groups of 20, and you're going to have one-on-one time with these people for kind of 20, 25 minutes. Unfortunately, you're going to have to continue to listen to me a bit more in another room. I'm going to talk about really bespoke timing advice for the UK, how we can fine-tune that for you, how we can support that with our digital offering, what we've got to really support and help you get the very best out of this with your timings. Then outside, there's a rotation where you can meet Eric and Phil, where we're going to look at the mixing up process. What are the risks with storing them for too long? What are the risks of storing them at the wrong temperature? How can we get things wrong? What can we do to improve that mixing process? How do we know we've been successful? And then we've got Sean, who's already spoken about Acelepryn, who's joined by Alan, who's one of our spray experts from Gillett's Hill. we're going to actually look at a sprayer out there, a real-life amenity sprayer. We're going to look at the filtration systems. We're going to look at the risks involved. We're going to look at anything you can do with your sprayer to improve the chance of delivering more live nematodes to that surface to give us the best chance of getting the best out of them. Now, after those rotation sessions where we've gone round, we're going to come back in and finish the day off with integrated strategies. And I'm going to look at data, all the trial work we've done to understand how, when we piece Acelepryn and NemaTrident together, how we can get better levels of control. So we can get more consistent results, we can get more robust results, and give you more peace of mind that you're getting the levels of control you want. We've worked really hard with ICL and we've managed to package up a total Leatherjacket total approach pack. So you can look at that data later. If it's something you want to choose, it's all nicely packed up in a 1 hectare pack. And we're going to touch a little bit on that on one of the rotation sessions too. And this is what we're going to touch on this afternoon. So just a little taster of what we've done. This was over in France. This was a spring application. We did some spring work in France because they've got better soil temperatures than us, so it's a good way of testing a really difficult situation at the right temperatures. We don't get the soil temperatures in the spring for spring applications, but we do in France. In this situation, it's the same data as earlier, we've just expanded it. 116 in the untreated. NemaTrident gave us about 70% control. Good, about realistic for what we can achieve. Useful, not the ultimate solution. Acelepryn gives us about 90% control, but when we combine the two in a clever strategy, which we're really going to break down into later, we managed to get 100% control in that situation. We see this consistently across our data. Untreated, we can use nematodes to reduce that by about 70% when we apply it right. We get about 90% control with Acelepryn. When we combine the strategies, we can move that up to that full 100% control, stay completely within the label and get the level of control industry wants, not even using full rates, so we can control those costs as well. We bring those rates down to 25 per centimetre, 2.5 billion. We're going to look at that later on. Thank you for your time. I hope you've had a good session this morning.